out loud. It was the planning commission thinking wouldn't approve that one.
Yeah. Well, Eric was here. Do you know where he lives at? He lives there. His dad was, if you've been around, his dad was the big radio disc jockey. Anyway, he said his dad had a project to do there, and they turned him down because of all the flooding and all, the impact on the groundwater and everything else. Yeah, he must be in his dad's house because the house is way off the road, way back. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, he's.
I went to a planning commission meeting that didn't actually happen, but they had an hour-and-a-half long presentation from the Dream Commission. And the whole time they were talking about how they're alleviating dream issues used by the basically hard top of the Meridian Mall.
Yeah.
All the ceilings and all the flat roofs and the parking area. It's just a floodplain disaster. So they just made a very long presentation, and they didn't have for the downtown development.
Oh, he did.
Didn't have a quorum, so it didn't make much difference. But we all sat there and listened politely.
Well, there's way more people in there now.
Oh, yeah. Three times.
Yeah. Well, at one time, I mean, wow, they built it so that at Christmas time, almost everybody would get a parking spot.
Yeah. And it used to be, I've lived here long enough that I remember when it was a really place to go and spend the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the malls were at Christmas time. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you had to run circles on the parking lot.
That's the only time a new store opened in there, my wife said, let's go see what the new store is.
Yeah.
So that doesn't.
Yeah, no, it was not my favorite place to go.
Now you can roller skate around there and not see anything. Mr. Schmidt, how are we doing with our recorders? All set to go? All right. Today is Monday, November 13. It is now time to commence the meeting of the Meridian Township Planning Commission. I call the meeting to order. First item of business is the roll call. Vice Chair Tresize.
Here.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Here.
Commissioner McConnell indicated he would not be able to make it this evening. Commissioner McCurtis.
Here.
Commissioner Scales.
Here.
Commissioner Brooks.
Present.
Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
And Commissioner Richards.
Here.
We have a quorum. This meeting is now in order. The next item is public remarks. I note that we have several visitors with us here today. If you are here to speak on a particular issue, you may wish to wait until we call that public hearing. If you're just here to express some position that you'd like the board to be aware of, now would be the time to do that. Is there anyone here who just wishes to address the board on a general issue? No. Very good. All right, then we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Second by Commissioner Brooks.
No.
I'm sorry, McCurtis.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There is a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
No abstentions? No nays? The agenda is approved. Now approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was October 23. Is there a motion to approve that? Moved by Commissioner Scales?
No. I just have a question.
Yes.
Or actually a statement.
Okay.
I was supposed to get with the staff about the October 23rd minutes. And the issue was on page 4.
Okay.
Where we took a straw poll and the votes that were tallied states Chair Bloomer, and then it states Vice Chair Bloomer.
You're talking about the minutes
September 11th.
for the previous,
September 25th.
Okay,
I was
okay.
supposed to get back with you on that, and I didn't.
I can make that
So I wanted to make
correction.
sure that we made that correction.
Okay,
So
I'll make that note. Thank you.
We're just working overtime that day, that's all. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 23 meeting?
I move approval of the minutes of October 23rd.
Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Seconded?
I did find it,
I'm sorry?
I did find an issue there. When, in those minutes, it talks about, I had a correction in the October minutes.
Well, should it say October 9th or should it say September?
Oh, the September, it said I had a correction in the September minutes, but it had the wrong date for the September minutes.
Okay.
It should be September 25th, not September 24th.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes.
This is very minor, but in number 5, in that same, we were just like struggling with approval of minutes. It says Commissioner Vice Chair Trezise, both up at the top in both of the votes, when I'm thinking it should be one or the other, Vice Chair.
Oh,
Trezise.
you're correct. That's copy paste, sorry.
Subject to the corrections that have been noted, I believe we have a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion of the minutes? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes as corrected by the two observations, say aye.
Aye.
There is no opposition. The minutes are approved. Communications. Staff indicates we have no communications to deal with at this point in the hearing.
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
That's correct.
Okay. Therefore, we're moving on to item number 7 of the agenda. 7A is Resolution 23034, which deals with C2 commercial at 4660 Marsh Road.
Bring this up for you for your information. There we go. Bring that up so you can kind of see the area we're talking about. Ms. Tamara No, who is in attendance, has requested rezoning of her property at 4660 Marsh Road in order to bring the current building into conformance with what's actually going on there. So a little bit of history. It was rezoned from RC to professional and office in November of 2015. Since then, it's been completely updated, remodeled. I was in there today. There's 3 floors. It's built out. Like, it's fully operational. It's kind of gone beyond the purview of the professional office. It's not just, consultants. There's, I put some, description of some businesses in here, but that's the point. They've kind of gone into business. And we have a building permit for one last area for a 1-chair hair salon, specifically for people who are going to have their weddings that day. They can come in, have it done, and in a kind of a private setting. So we're looking at this and we're kind of thinking, well, this is kind of an enlargement of a non-conforming use, but we don't want to punish a successful business. Ultimately, that's kind of where staff landed. If you have 3 floors of successful business, if God forbid something happens to those businesses in there, she comes in and wants to rebuild. Sorry, you're non-conforming. We can't let you do it. By rezoning the property, and I note in my report, the applications for C2, C1 works as well. It's not intense commercial operations, but it's either one. By rezoning the property, but leaving the future land use designation, because we realize that it's more intense than the MR designation in the future land use map. It's not common for us to make recommendations against that map. But what we're saying is, let's take this business, which is successful, support it in the far-flung future of the purview of the 20 to 30-year master plan. We still envision at some point this area could go multifamily residential. So we didn't want to entertain a master plan change. This was the solution where we landed. So this is where we're talking about This piece right here, this is Marsh Road. This is Commons Church, adjacent to the north. It is commercially zoned C2 across the street. And I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant. That's basically where we're coming from.
Commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Precise?
Yeah, I would ask a question. What is the functional distinction between C1 and C2?
C2 is a little bit more intensive business. You know, I can show you if you want to see specifics. Let me bring that up. Go to ordinances, go. District regulations. It's like I do this all the time.
I was thinking that.
The property conforms lot size and everything either way, so that's not an issue. So offices of professionals, professional service establishments, I'm looking at the C1 district. And that's really the difference between the office district and the commercial district, is that personal service establishment where you start talking about beauty salons, nail salons, eyelash salons, that she has one in there. There's a professional in there doing Botox injections, things like that. That's what kind of elevates this above the PO zoning district. When you get into the C2 district, you start getting into instructional centers, churches, libraries, restaurants. That's the big thing. You don't see restaurants in the C1 district. She does not have any restaurant plans or anything like that going on in here. Retail establishments, you get into retail establishments at the C2 district, things like that. So it's a little bit more intensive commercial use. What she's got going on in there, like I said, is the service businesses. And therefore the C1 would fit, and I view it as a single step. It's PO to C1, not as intense to C2. I think it's an easier step.
But staff is ultimately planning on, or asking to consolidate C1, C2, and C3 in the future anyway, aren't you?
That is language that's in the master plan. We have not begun any work on that.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks?
Can you pull up the map that shows the bigger map of that area with what the zoning criteria are? Is that possible?
Yeah, hold on. Well, I don't want to bring that up. I think, never mind. Yeah, this is what you're talking about?
Yeah, but I thought we could go bigger than that, but
I can make that bigger.
it's okay.
There we go.
Well, I meant more like geographically larger, not like blown up because I couldn't see it.
Okay, I'm gonna bring the GIS map up, but just please be aware that we've had some GIS issues that we're trying to work out with our GIS coordinator. But I'll bring it up and I can show you the aerial. Hold on. Okay.
He has done this before.
Coming down here, Marsh Road. So this is the property in question, Marsh Place, Commons Church. And if I turn the zoning on, that may or may not be, see, that's what I'm talking about. This piece, and I brought this to our GIS coordinator's attention, this piece should be shown as PO. It's shown incorrectly as RC on our online data. Everything around it is correct. This is all RC. This is C2 across the street. I think you see that actually better if I shut the parcels off. Yeah, there you go. See, it's all that C2 across the street from the property.
I guess, so what this made me think of is I was like, so this is zoned residential, but then there's all these buildings that aren't residential in it. And so I was like, how did this happen?
This is not zoned. First of all, the RC is a multifamily residential district.
Okay.
But this is not zoned multifamily residential. This is zoned professional office.
Well, no, but I guess, okay, then I'm confused, because on the PDF document, it shows that whole area is the same color.
On the future land use map, it does, yes.
Oh, is that what?
That's the first map the first map here is the 2017 future land use map.
Oh, that's why I'm confused.
Okay.
All right, so this has always been zoned like this, or at least throughout whatever recent history we have.
Since 2015.
Okay. All right. That's what I was curious about, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Okay.
4660 Marsh, is that, I'm looking at it on my phone just to try to get the satellite.
Sure.
That's one building or is it, because it seems rather large.
There's one major building, there's a smaller, I'll call it an outbuilding on the west side of the parking lot. That's not under consideration. There's nothing in there. The main building, here. It actually shows it better on Google Earth, but that's the main building that we're talking about, and it is a fairly large building. 2 stories and then a basement that are built out. So essentially 3 floors of offices and businesses, service businesses.
Okay. And all of that is under consideration here.
It's the entire property that is under consideration. You can't just rezone the building.
Sure.
But that is the parcel in consideration, yes.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
When I was reading the packet, it listed the different types of businesses that were there. And then it says that they want to bring in a hair salon.
Correct.
When I did research on that, I saw advertisements for a hair salon dating back to 2019, being in that location.
Okay.
So is this an additional hair salon? That
Yes,
they
it
want
is.
to add?
Yes, it is. Whatever might have been in 2019, what triggered this isn't just a business going out and a new business coming in. I don't think that might have flown under the radar like they have been, quite frankly. This is this is an expansion. This is a storage area that's being converted to a single chair hair salon. It was that expansion, that enlargement of the use that triggered the rezoning.
Okay. Now you confuse me. So tell me how you found out about this. How did we find out?
She applied for a building permit.
She applied for a building permit. So the beauty salon was not there already.
Correct.
Okay, and what I'm saying is there was a beauty salon that is there.
There is not a beauty salon there now.
Okay.
In this space.
There's a nail salon, there's an eyelash salon.
Nail salon.
Oh, I thought, oh, that's right. No, there is not. I apologize. There's other types of salons in there, but not a hair salon at this time.
So KASS Beauty Salon is not there.
She does eyelashes only, so she does not do hair.
The advertisement says hair, lashes, and skin.
I can't speak to an advertisement. I'm pulling the business. When I put this report together, I looked at Google Earth to see what was listed there, and I saw an eyelash salon. The applicant has seen the application, and and had no comment on this.
Maybe
Ma'am, hold on, please.
I'll wait for the applicant when she
Sure,
speaks. And I'll
sure, sure.
ask her, maybe she'll clarify that for me. What do we normally do when we find people out of compliance? What's your normal response?
Yeah, so that's a relatively unusual circumstance. When a situation like this arises where a permit comes to us in the due course of business, we deny the permit. Given that, as we looked into this, this was a relatively borderline case, and we were talking about a single space within the building, we thought it'd make more sense to bring it forward, direct the applicant to request the rezoning, to give them some flexibility until such time as this property redevelops in the future. It's not often that we find a use in a multi-tenant building that is not permitted, because most of our multi-tenant buildings are pretty straightforward, right? It's a commercial strip center, it's an office building. This is one of those buildings that's sort of on the edge of both, and so that's why we find ourselves here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? We have the petitioner here today.
That is correct.
Ma'am, would you like to speak on this issue?
Oh, sure.
Why don't you tell us who you are and your address, please?
My name is Tamara Noe, and I'm the executive director of Marsh Place. We purchased the building 2 years ago. So Cass Beauty, that does the eyelashes, she was there when I purchased the building, so I had no idea she was out of compliance. I didn't know it was even an issue. So I came to apply for a building permit to move the hairdresser in, and that's when I became aware that there was an issue. So.
May I ask, in the time that you have now owned the building, have you gotten any complaints from neighbors about out of compliance use of the building?
No. I haven't had any complaints at all.
What are the other occupants of that building doing?
So we tried to diversify a little bit. It was all therapy before, so we've added, well, there was a few. We have massage there that was there when we got there, the eyelash person when we got there. I've added an attorney. I have a trucking company that does just their dispatch out of the room. Home health services, they go into homes for elderly and take care of them. They do their paperwork at the office. I have an attorney, I think I said that, and just some other health and beauty stuff.
All right, so it's not like you're going from an office structure to a truck repair shop.
No.
This is fairly consistent with what the building's been used for up until now.
Yes, I'm just adding another health and beauty, the hairdresser, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Scale.
Who's going to be the hairdresser? What's the name of that?
Her name is Erica Ireland. It's H&I Bridal and Hair.
So it's not Cass.
No, Cass does eyelashes only. That's all she does. She may do hair out of her home, but I don't know anything about that. She does not do it in my building.
There was a January 10th, 2019 advertisement, new location, 4660 Marsh Road for Cass Beauty. And that takes you to a Facebook page, and then the Facebook page advertises Cass Beauty, and it says hair, lashes, and skin.
Okay, I didn't own the building at that time. She does not do hair in our building.
Okay,
She only does eyelashes.
okay.
And she's a worker. She does them from morning till night. So no, she does not do hair in our building.
Thank you. for the
You're welcome.
clarification.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Downing.
Thank you.
I've got a question of staff. Looking up the history of this, can you, do you have any timelines on prior to 2019? Is my recollection, at some point between 92 and 2019, that building went from residential to office. Do we know when that took place?
In November of 2015, it was rezoned from RC to professional office.
Okay,
2015. Okay.
okay.
Any other questions of staff?
When it was rezoned, do you know if the planning commission was supportive of that change, or was that something that the board did over the recommendation of the planning commission?
I'd have to get that information for you. I don't recall it being a particularly, when I looked it up, but, but I didn't pull the file and go through minutes or anything. That'd be easy enough to check.
For the, sorry. For the, so this is, the recommendation is to bring this up to the C2 level. And can you remind me again, so what are the levels on the properties adjacent to it?
The properties across the street from, on the other side of Marsh, all of that whole area is C2.
Right.
Everything to the south, east, and west is RC. The current property is professional office.
Okay.
So RC is a multifamily residential designation.
Oh, so even the church area is a RC designation?
That is correct.
Can I just point out, I think, is the actual rezoning request for C2?
The request was for C2. Staff notes that you have the authority under Michigan planning law to recommend a different category.
So you're not necessarily recommending, or is the staff recommending C2, C1, or leave it the same?
Staff is not making a recommendation at this point. Staff is only pointing out that C1 would work if you didn't feel, because if you didn't feel comfortable going to C2, which would, unless the applicant was to start giving conditions, would allow potentially restaurants and repair shop, things like that. Rather than put a conditional rezoning on this, C1 would work
Right.
for everything that she's doing there.
Okay. I guess one other point, part of the confusion, particularly public institutions and the residential zoning, is that's the only spot that they were actually allowed was in residential with a special use permit.
For churches.
Yeah, that's how they end up in residential zoning. There wasn't a public institution type zoning that fit. So it's actually, I don't know if it still is, but was under residential, but it required a special use permit.
So that explains the church part, but then,
Right.
and then I was also just curious though about the zoning for the other places, but that makes sense what you guys just talked about.
Mr. Shorkey, my recollection is the building to the southwest of this and on the corner of Marsh and Hamilton are both commercial or? Building?
Eyeglass place.
There is an optometry place right here, that is correct.
Isn't there a computer place in between them?
That's on the other side.
Maybe, that property right there, maybe.
I may be looking at the map incorrectly, but yeah.
That's a
Okay.
duplex.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay,
You done?
so the optometry,
Yeah, that looks like a duplex.
That's
Okay, all
that's a
right, yes.
duplex.
This is
Duplex.
this is the property in question.
gotcha.
This
That's
is a duplex.
It's on the
This is an
other side.
optometry office.
And the optometry would also be a non-conforming use at this point.
That is correct, but we're not doing anything with
I
that.
understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
That went through.
Just so that I'm clear on this, the requested change is 100% consistent with the property directly across the road from it,
Yes.
and is consistent with the proposed future land use of that zone, of that
No.
node, isn't it?
No. The future land use designation of this property is all, R3. It's correlates with your RA, your RB, your RX, so duplexes.
Okay. I misunderstood.
Designation, zoning designation. So note, you've got the optometry here, the duplex fits into that. So the current zoning also is not. So, yeah. So that was my comment we're not recommending changing the future land use map. We still envision that within the 20 to 30-year purview of the master plan, this whole area could go, multifamily, duplex, single-family kind of a development. But in the meantime, we have a successful business in the township that we'd like to support.
And it's not the only inconsistent use in that plat?
That is correct.
Okay.
So could we then, what would be the difference if we recommended a C1 versus a C2 designation?
The land uses that the C1 allows versus the land uses that the C2 allows,
So-
like we described.
Right, so then could the C1 still meet the needs?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. The thing that I guess I'm thinking about is if it went up to C2 and somebody wanted to build a restaurant there, it's like, that seems, doesn't fit the character of what that area is. And so I'm curious as to like, why go to the C2 versus the C1?
Correct. That's why staff brought the point up.
Historically, though, there was a restaurant across the street from it.
Maybe across the street from it, but that's in the C2 district.
Well, there used to be a farm there probably too, but
Not that long ago. It was, what was it, the Tuba Museum?
The Tuba Museum was closer to Okemos Village.
That's
Oh,
okay.
okay, all right. Yeah, good.
I guess I'd ask the applicant if,
on.
was there a specific reason why you are requesting C2 instead of C1?
No, I don't care which one at all. I'm just learning, and so I get as much help from Meridian Township as I can. I just, when I realized there was a problem, I want to fix it. So anything.
Okay, so you're.
I don't care.
C1 will fit your need.
Yeah, I'm not running a restaurant. There's no, nobody wants me to run a restaurant. No, we're good.
Commissioner Shrewsbury, did you have a question?
I'm learning too, I guess. I'm looking at the C1 in the zoning, and it looks to me like a restaurant is a permitted use in C1, so I just don't want there to be confusion. But
C1,
just for clarity, if anybody is paying attention, I just want to make sure I understand.
for consumption off the premises, so like a takeout, but like-
Or for carryout.
retail merchandise, okay.
So I just don't want there to be confusion, because this is really confusing to me, so I can imagine it would be to other people too.
If it would help, on my follow-up staff report, I can go into a little bit of detail and give you a table of what's in
Yeah.
C1 versus C2.
I'm looking, and I think I get it. I just wanted to make sure that,
But
for the record, if somebody's listening and heard it said that restaurant wasn't allowed, but it actually is, I didn't want there to be confusion. But that said, I'm comfortable, if the applicant is comfortable with the C1, that would be my preference. I think the staff made a good point that why overzone if you don't have to, because it
Sure.
will allow things that we don't necessarily want there.
Is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment on this issue? No? All right. Ms. Strongbow?
I know it's been asked and the applicant says she doesn't care. But how did it go from PO to C2? Just skip the whole C1. Was that a recommendation from you?
Trying to put a positive spin on this. So we had a meeting and I worked with her on filling the application out. And I do that with a lot of people,
Sure.
you know? And just in the course of conversation, I didn't have an ordinance in front of me, and I'll cop to this. I just said, hey, C2 will work. And then after the fact, I got considering it, well, C1 would work as well.
Oh, okay.
She's aware of this, but by then, the application's filled out, the legal notice is published. So I can't undo it.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
So it's not her
Mr.
fault.
Scales?
So in our decision-making tree here, we need to also consider what we do with this small piece as it applies to the entire area, especially since we have an out-of-compliance facility right there at the southeast corner. I'm just trying to look at the whole picture here, because what I'm hearing is I don't hear any opposition to making a change. What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, what I'm hearing is we're deciding C1 or C2. Am I wrong in what I'm saying?
Well, that's been the flow of the conversation.
Actually had a straw vote on it, yeah. Yeah, we haven't had a straw vote.
There has been a straw vote
We
proposed
still
yet.
vote no.
Pardon? I didn't hear that answer.
I said you could still vote no, but I guess if I
I
could.
understand that.
I guess I have some history, as most of you know here. I don't personally believe that that corner is out of compliance. I specifically remember that project coming forward, and whether it was a conditional rezoning, whatever the case might have been, I believe, and the staff can check that out, but I believe that that's not out of compliance, or at least wasn't at the time that it was created.
Okay.
Because I remember the hearings, a lot of discussion about it. So,
And I don't know that what we're dealing with here is a building that is currently not conforming to its existing zoning. It's an ongoing business. If something catastrophic happened to the building, it could not be replaced in its current form and its current usage. I think all we're asking, or what we're being asked to do, is to put this into a zoning code classification that allows the business to continue and to continue operating as it has done for many years. I doubt in my own mind whether that's ever going to change to residential, but that's something that is years down the road. And I think we should, in order to allow the business owner to have some protection for her own investment and operation, that we should put it into a C1 district to allow her to continue her business.
As long as that business is consistent with the way it's been run up until now.
Right. And I think C1 is as close to what it sounds like she's been doing in there as we can get.
I think we probably ought to have a straw vote to give guidance to the staff.
I would think so.
All right. Is there someone who wants to make a motion
No, we
first?
don't need a motion.
Don't need a motion? All right, then. The issue before the commission is whether or not to approve a rezoning of this property to C1. So that would be, bring it into compliance with its current use. Commissioner Scales?
I was thinking that we were holding a public hearing and we might want to close the hearing.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, so there were no public comments on this issue, so then I will close the public hearing. And we'll take a straw vote on whether or not to approve a code variance to allow this to be operated as a C1.
is this a recommendation to the board?
Recommendation.
So we're not approving it, we're sending a recommendation to the board.
Correct. That is correct. Now, there've been some questions about how to do this so it doesn't show up in the minutes.
I will simply say planning commission indicated support or did not indicate support.
All right, then let's just do it as a gross vote.
You can do it however you want to do it.
All in favor of approving this change to C1, say aye.
Well, let's have some
sorry.
discussion on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we did. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I can't manipulate what you have here on this screen.
Okay.
but I'm going to assume that a C1 does not allow for a bar. Especially with the proximity to the church.
Well, that would probably not fly because of the proximity, but, there's a 500 requirement, 500-foot requirement in state law, so regardless of whether it allowed it or not, it's adjacent, it wouldn't work.
Is this within 500 feet? Or
It's adjacent.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Then I'm good.
All right, let's call for the vote then. All in favor of approving the change to C1, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No? Staff has the recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll now move into item 7B, which is elevation 4 floodplain.
I'm sorry. One of the things we talked about last month was just so that the applicant knows next steps in this process, because this is a straw poll.
I apologize. You know what, you're right. We put something together, we worked with communications, we put something in a proper format, and this would have been a perfect place to put it in there. I'm sorry
You
about
probably
that.
shared it with her too, so
So the next step, this will come back on the December 11th agenda for a final vote. That will be a recommendation. Your application for rezoning then goes to the township board for final approval. And I'll be in touch. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
I'm going to skip, and I'm going to have to shrink this a little bit. So this is, I'm sorry, if you're ready.
Call up the next item.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, we're on item 7B.
Okay. Special use permit 23035. This is on elevation phase 4. This is to construct a portion of the required pathway within a floodplain. So here's how we got to here. We are in the middle of site plan review, which is an administrative process, reminder, for elevation phase 4 the fourth and final phase of elevation. Part of the requirements for that is the construction of the township pathway. That township pathway comes down here, turns to the east, and then does this. During our site plan review, we noted that that pathway is going through a floodplain, not a wetland. Wetlands are not involved in this. And I only bring that up because I had a question come up. The applicant tried to get around the floodplain and not have to be here tonight, but it just doesn't work. So it's kind of the chicken and egg thing. The pathway is required, but now the SUP is required to build the required pathway. So it's a cut and a fill. Engineering has looked at this and is fine with this. Has no comment on their cut and fill plan. They're gonna fill 31 and a half cubic yards of floodplain. That's being compensated with 63.1 cubic yards of compensating cut. That is shown on the floodplain disturbance site plan. That is in your packet somewhere. Right? I realize it's a big packet this month, but it is in your packet. That's really the cut and dry version of this. Applicants obviously here, they can speak to this further. This does not give them site plan approval. Like I said, they're still in that process. Engineering, I talked to them today, but their comments they still have comments on the site plan. That has nothing to do with this. Once again, our engineering department is fine with the compensating cut and fill that they're showing. And I brought this up because this is the area we're talking about, right in here. Okay, I'm sorry.
Curtis?
You said the engineering department was okay with the cut and fill, so help me, I just want to make sure I understand. If the floodplain is filled, then will that create any kind of problem with water being diverted or being that it's filled?
No, because they're doing a cut. They're doing, the numbers that I read to you, they're filling 31 and a half cubic yards of floodplain. They're doing a compensating cut to create more capacity in the floodplain, 63.1 cubic yards.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
So is this, I'm assuming this is in conformance with the state law, and that they're mitigating 2 to 1 for what they're disturbing. Is that correct?
They have applied for their Eagle permit. The application's in your packet. I can let the engineer for the applicant speak to that further.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Sure.
Can you point out on the map, please, where the compensating cut will be? I see where they have to,
Adjacent. This is the fill to build the pathway. The cut is adjacent to it.
I see, okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, but
No, that's-
the cut happens because they building the pathway, so they're doing the cut to compensate for that.
Right,
Got you.
right.
We have the petitioner here today?
Yes, you do.
Come on up. Tell us your name and your address, please, sir.
Hello, Alan Patrick. I'm with Kebs Incorporated, the civil engineer, 2116 Hazlitt Road.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of this gentleman?
Yes. Can you give us your explanation of where you're at with the state permits and the floodplain
Yes, the
Floodplain Act?
the application is put together and submitted to Eagle. We're waiting in the process for them to put it through their system and then get their final approval. But it is a 2 to 1 compensation of cut compared to the fill that we're asking.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Can you see our map? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. The area that was just demonstrated to me as where the cut is going to be, is that also part of the floodplain?
Correct.
So you're simply enhancing the existing floodplain?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Any other questions of this gentleman? Yes.
I would not have a problem with this, especially since what they're putting in here is a pathway.
Which is required
If
anyway.
it were to flood, it's not damaging anything. And it's consistent with my understanding of the law, that if you're going to interfere in there, you must mitigate above and beyond. So I'm comfortable with what I hear here.
It looks to me like a very restricted area, too. It's not like you're going to throw hundreds of acres out of whack.
Right. Right. It's just the very upper end in a small area that we're impacting.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Thank you, sir. Is there any public comment on this issue? Anyone wish to address this issue? No? All right, then we'll close the open hearing on this. Yeah, is there discussion among panel members? Well, let me just start it off by saying I agree with Commissioner Scales. It's not a major involvement in the community activity. If it does flood, people won't use the pathway for about a day or two. Plus the fact that they are in compliance with state floodplain law. And it's a relatively restricted area. It's just a small area, a compensating cut. I simply would express that I have no problems with what's being requested here. Any other comments or questions? Do we need a straw vote on this one too? Okay. All right then. Now, this one would not go to the board. This one is just something that we would approve. All right. So let's just give staff guidance. We'll take a straw vote on those who would approve the cut as proposed by the proponent here. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? No?
Thank you.
All right. So now we are on item 7C, which is the Meridian Township Master Plan.
Thank you, Chairperson, members of the Planning Commission. As required by state law, we initiated the required 63-day review period earlier this fall, and have now gotten to the point of having received comments and feedback from neighboring communities. We did receive official written word from Williamstown Township. They do like our plan a lot. So there's that. And so at this point, this is a required public hearing under the state law. We would ask that you open the public hearing, see if there's any feedback, and then close the public hearing. And then if the Planning Commission would like, I would recommend that we talk about next steps under item 10 this evening.
Thank you. So then, based on the recommendation of staff, I'm now opening this issue to public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the issue of the proposed master plan updates? The record should reflect that no one present has expressed a desire to speak. I'm sorry, Commissioner Scales?
I do have a question of staff.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you briefly summarize the response of the board?
The Township Board?
Yes.
The Township Board has not reviewed this yet. They will review it after the recommendation is made by the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The record should also reflect that there were a large number of comments filed with your office on the proposed plan that were included in our package.
Yep, we wanted to include everything that we've gotten so far so you can see the full gamut. So we have received comment over the course of this review.
All right. You'd prefer to delay discussion of that until item 10?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do that then.
Thank you.
So we are now on item 8, unfinished business, which is the 2023-06 CV Conservancy District update.
Thank you. This is the follow-up meeting for text amendment 2023-08. This does amend the Conservancy District in our zoning ordinance. It achieves two major objectives. It moves decks from being special use permits to permitted uses in floodway areas, and it allows our floodplain administrator to administratively approve cut and fills up to 10 cubic yards. Note that elevation 4 still would be here in front of you tonight. It's going to help with, it's going to help the public. It's going to make the process easier. It's going to just make things run more smoothly behind the scenes where the sausage is made.
Is that the technical term?
I learned it in planning school, sir.
You had a proposed order in here somewhere, but there's somebody, do you recall what page it was? Didn't you have a proposed motion?
A draft resolution, there is a draft resolution.
It's
Yes.
on page 130.
I warned you about packets that had more than 100 pages.
It wasn't my fault. I was directed to include all the comments for the master plan.
I appreciated having all of the comments from the master plan in there.
Get up to it and see. Boy. 130, there we go. All right, is there any,
Appropriate to move approval of zoning amendment number 2023-08, Conservancy District Amendment.
I'll second that.
any discussion on the motion? Okay, then we'll call, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have one simple question for Mr. Shorkey. This applies to decks only, not structures.
It would apply to structures as long as the fill was less than 10 cubic yards.
So someone could put an addition on,
Correct.
okay.
It's just if we don't take the step of moving decks into uses by right, people are still going to be in front of this body for special use permits, regardless of whether you let them administratively approve the floodplain.
All right.
Is there a definition of what constitutes a deck?
I got the zoning ordinance open. I think that's in general. Probably not, because our definitions are pretty.
No.
Yeah, it's gonna be a building code. So it's not gonna have a roof, it's not gonna be, however the building code defines it.
All right. There is an authorized definition somewhere, though. Because speaking as an attorney, if you leave a hole open like that, you're going to have, the week after we pass this, somebody's going to come in with a.
Oh, yeah. It's just not a zoning definition, it's a building definition.
All right. But there is a definition you can fall back on and say, that's not a deck.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a treehouse is not a deck.
No, it is not.
Okay. All right.
I didn't have to move much fill either.
Commissioner Scales.
So where do we tie in the definition?
We don't need to tie in a definition. The building code has a definition for what a deck is. So if someone's going to come in with a building permit application to build a deck, that they're going to deal with our building inspector, who's then going to look at it and make sure it conforms to Michigan building code definition of what a deck is. They're the ones who are going to say, this is not a deck, this is a treehouse.
Okay.
Or more commonly, a sunroom. There is a defined difference between a sunroom and a deck.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Any other discussion or questions before we call the vote? There is a motion to approve zoning amendment 2023-08 Conservancy District Amendment. There's been a second. Call the roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner McCurtis?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trezise?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you. We'll get this to the board.
Thank you.
I would point out this is a recommendation to the board, not a final approval.
Correct. It is a text amendment, so we will send it to the board.
Yeah. All right, now we are back to item number 10, further discussion on the master plan update.
So, under the state law, there are two ways to approve a master plan. By default, it is a planning commission document because it is a planning document. However, a community can choose to vest the approval ability in the hands of the elected board or commission or council, depending on the form of government. Meridian Township has previously taken that option, and therefore the township board has final adoption of the master plan in this community. And so what's being asked of the planning commission at this point is a recommendation on the plan. We've met all the requirements necessary under state law to move this forward. And so from staff's perspective, there's no huge rush at this point. This will be the last piece of our redevelopment ready communities recertification process. But we are essentially, they know we're in the final stages. It will not hurt us to take another meeting on this to get moving forward. Additionally, technically, the planning commission bylaws would need to be waived tonight to take action, and I cannot stand here with a straight face and give you a justifiable reason to waive those bylaws. So, my recommendation at this point is for the planning commission to take one last read-through of the plan over the course of the next couple weeks and come back at our December meeting prepared to make a final recommendation to the board on the plan. That would be my recommendation at this point. Happy to talk about any specifics at this point or at the December meeting, completely up to the purview of the commission. We, again, welcome any feedback. I still have a few changes that Commissioner Schneider recommended that I need to tweak a couple of sentences just to make sure they read a little better. But if you have any last feedback, now would be a great time to get it to us, and we'll get it taken care of before our December 11th meeting.
Any discussion or comments?
I had a question. I don't know, I don't remember or recall what the discussion was about accessibility of the document, or if there was a specific plan in place for that. So just accessibility.
So my understanding with communications, and we'll follow up with them, is that the way this format works through our website makes it more accessible to a broader group of people, unlike just doing like a PDF or something like that, which is why we chose this format, because this is the format our newsletter goes out in. This is the format that we've really moved to. But we will follow up to confirm that.
Okay, so there's some, for example, some form of like audio version that is possible with this format.
That is my understanding, but let me confirm that before the next meeting.
Thank you. One other thing, I don't remember who originally proposed this. I feel like it was Commissioner McConnell, but I apologize, I'm not sure. Somebody recommended the possibility of having a land acknowledgement in the document. I wasn't sure where we were at on that either.
We will we'll work something up for that. I have a draft somewhere. It might not have made it into the final version, but let me get that a land acknowledgement.
Native land.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah.
Taking notes.
Let us finalize that. We'll get that in there as well.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the Meridian Township website, and it's not readily apparent how to get to this document. Possibly, especially since we're getting close to a final version, it should be promoted on the website in such a way that it's easy to see from the homepage.
We'll get it some more spotlight. It's got its own page.
Yeah, but I can't find it real quick.
Okay, we'll try. We'll get it more out there.
All right.
Any other questions? I would like to make a comment for the record. A large number of citizen comments were included in our package, and I found them really quite interesting, if for no other reason than their consistency. It seems like a large majority of the residents who chose to give input agreed on the same basic principles: preserving green space, infill development, land reuse rather than breaking new ground wherever possible. It was interesting how consistent the input was in most cases, which I think is probably helpful both for us and for staff.
Absolutely.
Can we take public comment on this?
Okay. We're going to have public comment in a minute anyway.
Yeah. Let's see, is there anyone here who wishes to specifically address this issue? No? All right. Anything further, Mr. Smith?
No, I have said my piece on this. I appreciate everyone's work on this over the last year, or roughly, and would appreciate one last polished look at it, if you don't mind.
Very good.
Well, thank you to the staff and all the work that you all have done on it.
Thank you.
Push it forward.
All right.
This process has gone much more smoothly than in the past, and it is because of the efforts that the staff have put forth. So I agree with Commissioner Brooks. Thank you very much for your assistance.
Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to close this item, and we'll move on to item 11, reports and announcements. First is Township Board update.
So a couple things from October and November, since we did miss a meeting in there, and we had a lot of stuff going on. I'm just going to go through this list real briefly. Township Board has approved the framework for the CIA TIF at this point, so that will start moving forward now. The Corridor Improvement Authority will start to become more active, hopefully, now that they have a funding mechanism almost in place. And the board did approve the RRC housing updates that the Planning Commission wholeheartedly recommended about 6 weeks ago. And so that will now be in place, and I've already got someone trying to figure out how to do an accessory dwelling unit. There is a demand out there. It's small, but it's mighty. Board is expected to take up recreational marijuana standards for their license review at their next meeting with an eye towards potentially opening a window for accepting applications after the first of the year. The board held a study session on location design status of the senior community center project that's floating around out there. We're still very, very, very early in the process. I have little that I can share with you other than there was a recommendation to bring on a design consulting firm to start the process of getting some basic concepts down and getting some basic costs down so we can find a direction to move in.
May I ask, does that involve building a new structure or taking over an existing building?
Both.
Both.
To be determined. We have officially, as of about 5:30 this afternoon, applied for the Community Development Block Grant, Housing, Improving Living. I'm blanking on the second L, I apologize. Grant through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. They love their acronyms, and they're always, between MEDC and Michigan, it's always related to water or ice or something of that nature. $480,000 request to do home rehabs in the Tower Gardens and 3 separate neighborhoods around in Hazlet around the lake. And so we'll find out in 2 weeks. We expect to be successful given that they did not get enough requests to fill their funding quota. So we expect that we will get this money. We will partner with Capital Area Housing Partnership, who's been doing this kind of work for decades, for them to administer the program. Plus it gets us access to their contractor lists and relationships, which should help us. So we hope to get more information out about this once we know, because it's really just gonna be word of mouth, and it's gonna be a lot of first come, first serve. It's intended to serve low to moderate income individuals who own their homes, and we're trying to help them stay in their homes and stay in the community. And lastly, from the board's perspective, they honored the volunteers of the year at their last meeting, Steve Thomas and one Peter Trezise. So congratulations to Member Trezise on that honor. That is all I have from the township board today.
Did you get to weigh the popcorn to those?
Earlier.
All right, do we have liaison reports?
I just had a question regarding so I'm the liaison of the CIA. Was there another CIA meeting at all this fall?
I believe one is coming.
Okay,
So
all right.
It was just the board had to take action on the steps towards the TIF.
That's what I figured, so
Yes.
I was surprised that it got adopted. I'm glad, I just was surprised, but yeah, that's good.
I think now that has happened, there will be another meeting.
Okay, all right.
Anything else? No. All right, I went to what should have been a Downtown Development Authority meeting. They did not have a quorum, so it was not a formal meeting. But what was interesting was they had a significant presentation from the County Drain Commission talking about resolution of drainage issues in the Meridian Mall and Meyer areas. And what came out of that was they're concerned, the Meridian Mall is basically a gigantic floodplain. It's all one gigantic parking lot with a bunch of flat roof buildings. When it rains, it collects water. And they are concerned with redirecting that and controlling it because they foresee that flooding is only going to get worse. The other issue that came up is the Meyer parking lot across the street from it. And they praised Meyer. They said Meyer is fully cooperative with all of their issues and all of their efforts and is helping fund the corrections that are necessary to control the water flow off of their very large parking lot. So it was an interesting presentation. It's just too bad that it wasn't a formalized meeting. Anyway, that was it wasn't actually a meeting, it was just a presentation, so. Any other liaison reports?
Hey, I attended the Economic Development Corporation meeting. They had a presentation there from Lansing 501 Retention Attraction Program. But I also, they worked on their 2024 Economic Development Corporation meeting calendar during that meeting. But I also attended the board's study session that Director Schmidt was talking about. And I came away with more information there about the senior center than I heard at the original neighborhood listening session. And it was a different viewpoint. And I was glad to hear that. First, I heard at the listening session, it was opened up as a question of who would be willing to pay more taxes to do this. I got a different perspective at the board's meeting, work session. They were talking more about how to do this without doing a tax increase. And I was glad to hear that because they were combining a senior center with a community center, and I think that's more sellable in our community. I think that's something that we could use. They were there talking about repurposing Yonkers, where previously it was a response of that's not an option because we need to buy the building with the $5 million that they got from the legislature. So now there is an opportunity to purchase Yonkers. Numbers that were thrown out there of how much is needed to do this project was as high as $20 million. The manager, the township manager, spoke about other monies that they can gain a savings from to apply to this project. One thing they spoke about was a concern of mine, and that is if we do get a community center, what's it going to look like? What are we looking for? And let us see your vision. And also think about long-term staffing of this. Somebody's got to run this place. So it's more than just buying a facility. It's an investment in a future. And one thing that they thought of was moving the Park and Recreation Department into this new facility. That would help solve some issues such as reception area. And in my mind, I'm looking at, okay, what are we looking for in a community center? Well, every year I give a youth workshop through my fraternity, and we use the Hannah Center. That's a community center. That's a senior center. I walk in there, there's 2 people at a reception desk. There's people operating offices throughout the building. That's a major operation. But they also rent that out. I mean, their prices have changed from last year to this year. I just rented it, and it was $1,100 last year. It was almost $1,700 this year because they started charging me $5 a table to put a table covering on there for the small tables. I mean, there's ways where this, in essence, what I'm saying, there's ways where this community center can also generate monies. And I'm just impressed with the direction that the conversation is now going.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments about any liaison government? No. All right. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. so we are now on project updates, item 12 on our agenda.
You have an updated project report in your packet?
Nothing in addition to that. Very good. Do we have any, well, probably shouldn't make that an official statement. All right, now is public remarks. We have members of the public who've been patiently waiting through the entire meeting. Do any of you wish to address the board? No? All right. Commissioner comments?
This is in regards to the comment I made about the pothole in front of the house to home place. Has there been any movement on that? I know that there was a letter submitted to the drainage office. I just keep driving by this pothole and it is so huge and I'm like, somebody's gonna.
Remind me of which side it's on.
It's on the western side.
Okay.
Well, no, it's on the northern side of House to Home.
Yep.
It's on the entrance that's on the south side of the Chipotle
Yes.
parking lot.
So it's on the entrance drive.
Yeah. And the thing
Yes.
is massive.
We'll reach out again. I mean, it's private property, so there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
I guess in theory, we could issue a code violation, but we'll look into it again.
I'm not saying there should be I'm not trying to start a fight or anything. It's just like,
Yeah.
I just don't want somebody's car to get broken and then them not know that who the owner of that property is, who should be held accountable for that damage.
We will follow up on that again.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? No? All right. Then I see that we are on the last item of the agenda, which is adjournment. Chair entertains a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. We are in adjournment.